Hello world, and welcome to episode 3, where I will tell you about the trip through the rivers and canals of Germany. On the river Elbe we get a taste of how powerful the current can be, and it gets very tense on board. In Cuxhaven we get the mast off and we enter the Elbe-Weser canal, and finally we get a taste of some stress-free canal sailing. Currently we are in Torrevieja in the south of Spain, in the Marina International. We are under quarantine. The marina is closed for visitors, and we can only leave the marina when we are going for shopping in the supermarket or going to the pharmacy or the doctor if needed. But we are both well, and we have no symptoms. We haven't seen anybody else in the marina being sick. Effectively, we are more or less alone here. There's no people here around us, and we hardly see any people here except for the marineros in the marina. But again, back to 2018, where we went to Germany. In episode 2, I showed you how we left my small island in the cold north on a very unusually nice sunny day. Later that day, we arrived in the city Kiel in Germany after a 7-hour-long trip running only by engine. This was the longest we had ever been running on engine alone, as we usually have a lot of wind in the north. In Germany we had to enter our very first lock at the Kiel Canal, and we were very excited. We had studied so much for the 70 certificate, and we knew all the theory but had absolutely no practical experience. In this canal the merchant vessels enter first, and we had to wait for the special light signals for pleasure boats. We came in and everything was very easy, no problems to tie up at all. Only slight problem was the slippery wooden bridge. One step outside the rubber mats and it was like soap. The level difference was less than a meter, and it changed so slowly that we could hardly feel it. So here we enter the Kiel Canal after the lock. The canal is 98 kilometers long, but we took it nice and easy and spent a few days on the trip with several stops, and then some days in the final port of Brunsbüttel. In Brunsbüttel I could stand on top of the locks and see how the current changed during the day on the river Elbe. For every 6 hours it would switch direction, and it looked like the current was very, very strong. In the inner parts of Denmark, where I had been sailing, there's almost never any current or tide to speak of. It is only towards the West Sea that we have current and tide, but I have never sailed there, so I was completely unprepared for what was coming. I studied tide tables and researched on the internet to be as prepared as possible. I figured that we should not try to fight the current, but sail with it. But I never realized how difficult it would be to leave the river and enter marina at our destination. This would almost be fatal and nearly ended our trip before it started for real. So one day we finally headed out into the river Elbe through the lock at the time where the current was changing to the direction of the city Cuxhaven, which is where we wanted to get our mast down. During the trip down the river towards Cuxhaven, the current picked up and became stronger and stronger, almost to the point where our rudder was not working anymore. This happens when the following current is so strong that not enough water is streaming over the rudder. At one point we were being moved directly towards a large metal buoy, and the rudder didn't react fast enough, but I could luckily turn the engine. I sped up the engine and was able to avoid the buoy by a few meters. Okay, this incident got my attention, and it was clear that we had a problem with this current now. But we reached Cuxhaven, and now came the real shock of the day. When it was time to steer towards land, it fast became clear that there was no way that this boat would be able to fight the current sideways towards the entrance. We were being pushed downriver towards the North Sea with a current which was at the least 5 knots. Resistance was futile. Called off the entrance attempt and turned the boat towards the ocean. After a short trek down the river, I turned the boat into the current with the engine and turned it all the way up, much higher revs than I have ever done before. We were now able to get closer to the entrance at the low speed of half a knot, sometimes even less than that. That was some really nerve-wracking minutes while staring at the coast, the entrance and the GPS showing the speed. If the speed had fallen to 0, I would have to call it off again and we would have no other choice than to let the river push us out into the sea and come back when the tide had changed many hours later. However, suddenly we were at the harbour entrance and safe inside the calm water. But I sure did learn an important lesson about currents, and I never forgot that on the rest of our trip. The big mistake I made was to arrive at my end point while the current was still strong. I entered into the Elbe at Brunsbüttel when the current was changing, but I should have planned it for the ending point in Cuxhaven instead. So I should have entered when the current was already running towards the ocean and landed in Cuxhaven around the time it ended. We spent a few days in SVC Marina in Cuxhaven and then moved La Sardina to the city marina just around the corner. We still had to sail out to the river, but with my newly painfully acquired knowledge about the tide, we moved exactly in the sweet spot when the current stopped to change direction and there were no problems. Close to the marina there's a historic weather semaphore from 1903, which was used to show the weather conditions on the oceans for the ship passing by on the Elbe River up until radio messages took over. It has some very interesting mechanical gears and details. It was separated into two parts. One part, marked with a B, showed the weather at Borkum, and the H part showed the weather at Helgoland. The arms at top show the wind force using the Beaufort scale. Each arm indicates two forces. The circles show the wind direction. Even today, the semaphore is showing the actual weather situation at Borkum and Helgoland. A local group is maintaining this very peculiar historic landmark. In City Marina, I assembled the crutches again, and a nearby shipyard removed the mast and put it on deck. Then we were ready for the next part of our trip. We had to go back upriver to Otterndorf and enter the small Elbe-Weser canal and sail towards Bremerhaven. This time I had prepared the timing of our trip better. No way I wanted to be caught in that river in the middle of a strong current at the wrong time again. I wanted to arrive at Otterndorf around the time the current changes when the tide is at its highest. That way we could have the most water under our keel when attempting to enter Otterndorf. There is a small canal marked with green buoys that must be followed exactly as this area close to the coast is very flat. In our boat with our engine it would be impossible to follow this marked canal in the strong current. We would simply be swept away like a small branch in the river. So no current this time was crucial. Finally time to move on. Got the engine started and called the lockmaster on the radio and gave him a taste of, in my opinion, my best German. Slowly we sailed up to the lock in between all the houses in the neighborhood by the marina. It was a strange feeling to have the mast on deck, and I was constantly bumping into it with my head. The lock opened up and we were finally ready to enter the river Elbe again, this time with a hopefully better plan. In Cuxhaven, the fishermen have a special signaling system where they will blow their horns when entering and leaving the harbor. The current is so strong outside that they can simply not sail in and out at the same time. Those sailing in have the right of way, and those inside, who are protected from the current, yield. As we head for the entrance, a fishing ship catching up blows his horn, and I chime in with my newly bought compressor horn. But my horn suddenly doesn't sound that impressive at all. We went into the Elbe and the current was giving us a good push upriver. And when we arrived at the small canal at Otterndorf, there was no current left at all. We sailed into the tiny canal and entered Otterndorf Marina with no incidents. It seemed that I had finally learned how to plan and use the current to my advantage. We continued down the Elbe-Weser canal the next day. Finally we got a taste of the real, quiet, idyllic canal sailing life. Thank you for watching, and don't miss episode 4, where we visit the Dutch people in the lower country of Holland. We also visit the Dutch Venice and see a lot of windmills, but absolutely no tulips in the fields. And don't forget, boating is hours of pleasure interrupted by moments of sheer panic. Adios. However, suddenly we were at the harbor. Suddenly we were at the harbor entrance and safe inside the calm water. However, suddenly we were at the harbor entrance and safe inside the calm water.
Blah 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 blah.
However, suddenly we were at the harbor entrance and safe inside the harbor. However, suddenly we were at the harbor. Suddenly we were. Nej, vi lader den bare være. However, suddenly we were at the end harbor. However, suddenly we were at the harbor entrance and safe inside the calm water.